You're listening to the Love Over Addiction podcast.
Today, we get to hear a conversation between Michelle and a woman from our community. She's sharing her personal story about loving a good man who suffers from addiction. And as you may know already, we're a judgment-free community, which means we welcome every woman, regardless of her background, her situation, or her personal beliefs. The woman that Michelle is talking with today was brave enough to share and get super vulnerable with us. So let's send her ultimate love and acceptance and let her feel the safety of this community.
Okay, perfect. So I want to say thank you, first of all, for agreeing to talk with me. I am so grateful that you were willing to share your story. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for trusting me with it. So let's start from the beginning. When did you first meet your husband, and when did you first started to see that there were problems? When did the red flags start to appear?
When I met him, we both drank too much. I was just like, had such low self-esteem and just, and just met him, and I was like, I knew it wasn't a healthy relationship really, but he wasn't mean. He wasn't abusive. We would just drink together. He was happy, so I kind of knew like that it was a problem, but I never saw any signs of, like anger or violence or abuse or anything like that until, I got pregnant with my first child and his mom passed away. And he started, because when I met him, he was a beer drinker and was happy. And then, when his mom passed away, he started drinking vodka. And I just like, the devil came out in him, and he would even say that, like, he was like, the devil is in this house. I mean, it was really bad. It was really scary. But that's when I noticed that, there's some dark demon, type thing going on here.
Yeah. Was he
and then,
verbally abusive? Was he, like, when you say
yes.
He says the devil was there, I mean, was he throwing things? Was he hitting things? Was he yelling at you? What kind of behavior was he exhibiting?
It was mostly yelling. There was one time he punched a hole in the wall. One time he threw the kitchen table. But mostly it was just yelling around the house, and I had to sit there and listen to him about he would talk about wanting to kill himself, wanting to kill this, anything that bad that happened at work. I'm going to murder that person. I'm going to cut his face off with a box cutter, burn the house down, and, and then just like going into these graphic details about how he wanted to hurt people, harm himself. And, it was when I had a baby, and I was like, this kid's going to grow up, and this is not, good. But so anyway, it was just, and then he was very jealous and possessive. He would accuse me of cheating on him. And he said, if you ever cheat on me, I'll split your throat from ear to ear. Do you want to know what that sounds like? And it sounds like this. And this was all in front of the children. And I would try to, like, go into a different room, but he would follow me. He just was so angry at everything, blamed, at anything. Even the guy that was taking too long at the CVS pharmacy, he, some guy that cut him off in traffic, he would go on and on about how he busted his legs open. I don't even know if it actually happened, but he would go on about, and he was crying on the ground and that kind of stuff. Or then he went through a phase where he's saying he was collecting money for his friend who was a lawyer. And it was just crazy. It was crazy. He was a crazy person.
Yeah. How often did that happen? Was that on a weekly basis? And what was his behavior like did he ever have periods where he was normal? Like his old self?
Like when we were married, he would go to work and he would be like the normal self. He'd call me and be like, "Hi," act like nothing was going, he would be like a normal person at work. He'd call, "Well, what are you doing? What's going on?" And, and I had just spent this whole weekend of him crazy person, but at work, he would be fine. And no one knew at work. He did really well at work. He called in sick a lot, but he's in sales and he produced for them. So they kept, accepting his excuses. But so, yeah, he would be normal at work. But as soon as he got home,
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
Because that shows you that he can control it. Like, that to me says that he's coming unglued at home and then he goes to work and is normal. That tells me that that's a man that's choosing to become unglued, who can easily choose to hold it together at work.
Right.
Like, he had boundaries at work, but he didn't have boundaries at home.
Right.
Yeah. So what happened? So he was like this for a while. How long was he like this for? Or is he still like this?
Well, we've gone through the divorce and I've grown so much in myself. Like, he doesn't treat me the same way anymore.
Interesting.
It's completely different. When he drinks, he doesn't call me 100 times because he knows I'll call 911 and get the police there and to the hospital. And I don't get angry with him anymore. I feel sympathy for the kids because they miss out. And so I'm like, we're friendly. So so when he sobers up, he pretends to be like this great guy. And now when he starts drinking, he just kind of disappears. And, sometimes he'll call me like, "Please come help me." And I'm like, "I'm not going to help you." He has all these AA people. He actually moved after I came here. And it's just like amazing to watch because he pulled himself out of it. He did it without me. He's done it several times, put himself through rehab, moved himself, got himself a job, but he's still, every 30 days he might fall off the wagon and then, but it's different now. It's not the same at all. He treats me completely differently and I treat him completely differently from all like the learning that I've done, all the work I've done on myself.
How did you get to that point? Because I know there's women listening going, I need that. I need to have that strength that I hear in her voice right now. I need that to be my story. So how did you do that?
Oh my gosh. I started with your program. Just first detaching, which is really hard to do when the man follows you around the house and is screaming at you in front of your children that he's going to slit your throat if you ever cheat on him. And one night before I left, he was like pinning me down, telling me how he was going to come and kill me in my new place, so.
Wow.
Yeah. He even said I could snap all your necks, pointing to my kids. His neck, her neck, I could do it. I won't do it, but I could do it. But it's like these children are sitting right here.
Right.
And if they were 10 and 15 and they heard their father saying this, like that would just be so scary. Anyway, so I was listening to I was doing your program when I still lived with him. And then I separated from him. I moved like just 10 minutes away into a townhouse because, they won't leave, even no matter how much you beg them to.
No matter.
Yeah.
So true. So true.
Yeah. So I had to take the two kids and we rented a townhouse and he drank, like tried to drink himself to death. And I was still really involved. I was still like he would call and I'd be like listening to, it was, I wasn't really recovered because I was still like deep in the addiction with him. And then that was November, and then New Year's came and he was like, he had to go to the hospital, and then he went to rehab and came back out of there and was sober for like 60 days, but he was manipulative, wanted us back. And so I just did a lot of research on, what alcoholics think, what type of behavior is this, and I did a lot of research on narcissism and borderline personality, and a lot on abuse, like mental, emotional abuse, gaslighting, projecting. I mean, I just did a lot of reading and would take pictures on my phone, stuff that I resonated with. I just was consumed with it. That's all I was thinking about was, what is this behavior? And the more I started understanding what was going on, because he was trying to make me feel guilty and ashamed of leaving him, and then he was trying to use the kids, please come back. And I mean, I was like, we were separated. I was like, I'm not comfortable with you kissing me. And then by like the end of the weekend, I was having sex with him because of how messed up it was. He would be like, I don't know, just the manipulation and the shame and just all, and it's just, I just could not get out of it, just being in the same
cycle.
In the same city.
You were in an abusive cycle. I mean, that's exactly what it is, and I'm sure you found this in your research, and I've talked about it a little bit on the blog about the cycle of abuse and how it starts with, the outburst and then the apology and the promise not to do it again, and or perhaps they guilt trip you and then they go right back into it again, and it's just a circular, very dysfunctional setting. And you're right, the only way that you can stop that pattern is by understanding what is actually going on and recognizing it, and then changing your behaviors. And I think that's where a lot of women get stuck, is they think that in order for the dysfunction and the cycle to stop, they feel like they have to get him to change his way. And that's just a lie that addiction tries to make you believe to stay stuck. It's actually what you've done is textbook perfect, because it's saying, look, I'm going to do my own work, and you can stay a mess all you want to. I'm going to break this cycle. It takes two, and I'm out.
Exactly.
And it's not going to work with just you by yourself. I mean, that's the thing, right? So that's great.
Yeah.
You took on that responsibility of owning your recovery, and that's huge.
Yeah. Oh. Well, it wasn't until, finally I left because I couldn't take it anymore. I was just, he has a tendency to be violent. So I just I can't take this anymore. And I have these 2 young children, and I didn't have any help, so I went and stayed with my dad. And I tell you, and then he, tried to drink himself to death again, and he put himself into a rehab center. And then when that happened, I was like, I became the person I was when I met him.
What do you mean by
it
that?
was I was, first of all, I was in the house where I had, in my old house where I grew up, and I had such self-limiting beliefs. I just had such bad self-esteem. It's not like anything horrible happened to me, but I'm what I've learned about myself is that I'm very introverted and intuitive, and it's just I just had a really hard time in life. I did a couple other online courses to try and heal from narcissistic abuse, and started looking at myself, and I realized, I have this trait called I'm a highly sensitive person, and this is why I am the way I am, but there are strengths to it as well, and here's what you can do with the weaknesses. So I really just spent time on myself, because I realized the reason I got into this relationship was because I had such low self-esteem and didn't think I could get any better. And I'm I have to change that.
There's a book that truly changed my life, because I can relate to a lot of what you're saying. It's called Quiet by Susan Cain. And it's all about introverts. And it's all about, I used to view myself as, I used to view my introverted qualities. And this book changed my life because it allowed me to celebrate all of those qualities that I thought made me unique,
you just feel so different. Yeah.
Yes. And when you grow up, and I know exactly what you're talking about, it's like when you're young even, you can't put words to it, but you just know that something's different about you.
Right.
But you can't figure out what and why.
Right. And my parents were nice people, but they didn't know what to do with me.
Right.
So you know,
right.
I wasn't raised by alcoholics, but they were just like, I don't know what to do. So, you know, I turned out, you know, I ended up marrying an alcoholic, but it wasn't because I was repeating a pattern. It was just like, I felt so bad about myself because of the, you know, how I was, and just thought I didn't deserve any better. But you're right, now that I've like done so much, an introvert and an intuitive person and a feeling person and just trying to find the benefits of that and try to work on the weaknesses. But I mean, I spent a lot of time. I mean, I have a therapist. I went to divorce care, which was very helpful. I would recommend that to a lot of people. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, it's a Christian-based program. So,
you know, I want to say something really quickly about what you just said too, because I think it's super important. I have never, and I've been doing this for 7 years now, I've never spoken to a woman who came into a relationship with an alcoholic or a man suffering from addiction that was completely healthy and confident.
Right.
I've never, if, and this is kind of like a metaphor, but if, you know, let's say you were going out on a date and maybe it's your first or second date with him, and he shows up drunk at your doorstep and late, a healthy woman would go open the door, smell his breath, see how late he is, and say, I'm sorry, I'm not available, you know, you need to move on, and shut the door.
Yeah.
But the perfect indication that there's something, you know, that we have our own work to do, like you're referring to, is we allow them in, we make them some coffee, we lay them down, we cater to them, and we think that there's something, you know, that we can do to help them become the man that we know they can become.
Exactly.
And that's how
we feel special.
Yeah. We feel, and I think there's some payoffs there that come with that. And, you know, there's some payoffs where we feel important and we get to focus on all of their issues and
their problems. Exactly.
Yeah.
That was my number one thing that I realized. I don't have to worry about him right now. He's in rehab for a month. Well, now I have to think about me. And I don't like myself.
Right.
What am I going to do about this? Because I don't want to not like myself anymore. Because I don't want to get into this kind of mess again with these poor little kids, you know? Yeah. So, but that is like, that is what it is. It's you try to focus on their problems so you don't have to worry about yours. At least that's what I did.
I did too.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us do. And I also think that, I know for me, I put a lot of stock and investment into how he felt about me. I looked to him to tell me that I was okay, which in hindsight is ridiculous. Like, that's the stupid. I mean, like, you're asking a sick human being who cannot even love themselves to make you feel worthy and valuable, which is never going to happen, ever. So, did you feel like you experienced that too? Or did you, when you were alone and you were kind of with yourself, what kind of things did you start to realize?
You know, what's wrong with me? Why am I different? I mean, you know, I can't believe I'm here again. It was all negative self-talk. Like, I was so stupid to get involved with him. It was all negative self-talk. You know, I'm so lonely.
Do you do positive self-talk now?
I
do. You do
now,
positive self-talk? I love positive self-talk. What does it sound
Yeah.
like now? Like, what do you say to yourself now?
Well, I'm 44, so I have wrinkles, and I have,
Yeah.
I had 2 kids, so my stomach isn't as flat. So 20 years ago, I was 10 pounds lighter and thought I was fat. I mean, I'm 125 pounds right now. And 20 years ago, I thought I was fat when I was 110 pounds, So now it's like, I just don't, I'm like, I have to do positive self-talk. Like, I have 44 years, 20 years ago, I wouldn't be where I am today. I would have been like that, that self-sabotaging, self-conscious girl in like the perfect body. But now it's like I have all these years and I should be happy for these wrinkles. And I have these 2 amazing children who drive me nuts. But, so I just have to, and, and even, I look for joy in everything.
Love that.
It's really hard. I don't know if I could have done it if I was still living with my ex-husband, because that was really, that would have been, I don't know. But, when it doesn't always work, I still end up yelling at my kids. And, when I was at the vet yesterday and they told me that she had heartworms and fleas, I was like, wanted to cry. But,
I can relate.
but I was like, but this beautiful dog, let's find the joy in the beautiful dog. And while the dog is tearing down, my little daughter is pulling down her pants to go potty, and the dog is like chewing on her underwear and she's screaming. I'm like, look at the joy. So that kind of stuff. But when they're running around the house screaming and not listening, it's kind of hard. But the last bender my ex-husband went on, I was worried that he was going to die, but I was like, and so I'm just concerned for my kids, and he goes on like 1 week long benders and then needs like a week to recover. And so, but I was like, I found the joy. I mean, I was worried about him, whereas, a year ago I wouldn't have cared less what happened to him, but now I see how it affects my son. And I was just like, my joy right now is that I no longer live with him when he is doing this. Thank God I find the joy that I'm living in this beautiful house. But I am worried about him, and I'm like, I am not in control. I'm like, God has got this. If he dies, he dies. But I just am not ready to tell my little 6-year-old that yet. It's still like, I feel like I still try to control a little bit, because I'm worried about my kids. So when he does that, when he does that, when he's coming out of it, I'm like, your kids miss you. I really hope you sober up. And I feel like that's still a little bit controlling, because if I'm like using the kids. So I'm like, I'm not 100%, detached from it, but there's no longer yelling, screaming, crying. I just like, I hope you sober up. The kids really miss you. And then he tries to be like the good dad for a while, calls every day and shows up everywhere.
Yeah.
But you were talking about positive talk, but it was just like, if it happens that he dies, that's just the way it's going to be. I don't want it to be that way, but it's just, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. God's got this. It's God's plan, so.
Well, there's 2 things, because I can completely relate to what you're saying. And I mean, I had 3 kids with my first husband, and I worry about, every time my phone rings for years, I was like, okay, this is going to be the phone call.
Yeah.
It's going to be his family, and they're going to tell me he's gone. And I remember telling him that one time. I remember saying to him, this is after we divorced, and I've completely forgiven him. And like you, we are friends now. I don't talk to him very often because I moved away as well. So we talk maybe once every couple months. And he doesn't have any contact with the kids. My 3 kids have been adopted. No, he he can if he wants to, but this this disease is progressive, as you know, and so the interest in the kids just kind of faded as the addiction got bigger, and as he started actually getting involved with other women, and so it really kind of out of sight, out of mind for us, and he's always welcome to come and call whenever he wants to, but there just hasn't been any initiation. So, but when he does call, he actually just wants to talk to me most of the time. And it's when he's just desperate, and he's like, you're the only one I can talk to. And I listen to him and I don't try to fix him, and then I pray for him after our call. But I asked him one time, I said, I'm so worried every time the phone rings that it's going to be you saying that you're gone, that you died.
Yeah.
And he said to me, and this is one of the saddest things, but most honest things that he's said in years. And he said, Michelle, if that ever happens, you don't have to feel sorry for me, because I am so tired of this struggle. I am so exhausted from trying to fight my way back to normal and sober. And I said to myself, I'm wanting him to hang on for my kids so that I don't have to deliver the bad news and they don't have to put up with this tragic story.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm sitting here going, this is a man who every moment of every day since he was, I think, 12 years old, has struggled with life deeply and severely. And of course I want him to get sober, but at the same time, I really understood what he was saying. I really, really got it. And I thought, if the kids hear that, I can tell them that. I can tell them that Dad is really at peace now. The fight is over,
Yeah.
And
because, my ex-husband says the same thing.
Did he?
Yeah. Oh, he does. Every time.
Such
He's
empathy
like, this is
for
horrible.
Them. Yes.
He's like, it's horrible. I wouldn't wish this disease on anyone. And he tells me what he does now. He's like, I drink a gallon of vodka and then these airplane shots, and then I felt like I was hallucinating, and then I called the liquor delivery service and they came and I was all drunk, and so he's like, I can't stop. He's like, I just can't stop once I start. But what angers me, I mean, I don't get angry with him, but it's like, why do you even start then? Like, where it's going to go down. So I feel like that's the choice. They make the choice to start, and then when they start, then it's really hard to stop.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I get to hear from his perspective too. He's not trying to lie to me anymore.
I know, and isn't that when the dynamic of your relationship changes, where you can listen without judgment and there's no consequences for them telling you the truth, they can get real honest with you real fast.
Yeah.
Because they get that you've detached. And then your relationship just kind of changes to this very I don't know, I get very compassionate with him, but I'm always on guard. I've never let my guard down, even, it's been, I think 10 years or close to 10 years, but
oh, wow.
I still, every time he calls, I'm like, okay, armor on, get your boundaries in check. You know what to do here, Michelle. Like, there's a process before I click the answer button on my phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing is, they'll never leave your kid's life because they're your kid's father. I mean, you'll always have their number. They'll always have yours, most likely.
Yeah.
So how did you get divorced? What was that process like?
Oh my gosh. Well, I sent the papers, or I left town, and then my lawyer drew up papers, but then he freaked out knowing that I left. So he went to a lawyer and made all these demands. I hope you haven't absconded with the kids, you know, and I'm filing for divorce and bring the kids back. And, of course I was freaking out, and he was drinking though. So so he would call me and be like, I'm going to have police officers at your dad's house to come arrest you, and I'm having you bring the children back. Just going on and on. You can't take the kids away from their dad. But I was scared, but I knew that he was drinking, so he wasn't like really going to go to a judge and be like, get these kids back, you know? But I stayed in Nashville, and then we just, I just kept moving forward, and had my attorney, because he promised me, he's like, you are fine. They're not going to come arrest you. He has like 48 hours or something like that to come find you, and after that, then you can stay. But
wait, so he had 48 hours?
I think
explain that to me. How'd that work?
I'm not sure. I was told this like way after the fact. I think there is like a certain amount of time where if a parent leaves the state, the other parent can go get the kids back. I don't know. Or maybe call the police and say, she's left with my children. I don't know. I don't know, because I just heard about that like after the fact. But he was, like I said, he was just, yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's something that protecting, the other parent. But he was just so like beside himself, drinking, like was not thinking rationally. So I didn't get any cops showing up at my house, my dad's house. But I had started recording him when I lived with him, during his, and, I started saving text messages. And so I provided my lawyer all of that. I'm like, this is what we're dealing with. This is the type of person we're dealing with. This is what happens when he drinks. This is like, definitely like through, it wasn't just me. It was like through therapists and friends, helping me out because I was like so frazzled. So I put together, these documents and said, this is the type of person we're dealing with. And so my attorney came up with a plan. He just came up with a safety plan, or with a parenting plan that I felt was safe and that I could agree with. And obviously I don't follow it exactly as it is, because in the plan it says he has to have it has to be supervised visit. Yeah. But
like a guardian ad litem.
Right, exactly. But he doesn't need to be supervised if he's sober. And he's not going to come around the kids if he's drunk. So, and he does like the sobriety test every day. He blows into SoberLink, and I get the results. And I know the patterns. I know when he's about to start drinking. I just know. Right. I just know. I'm like, okay, like he dropped the kids off, and he's like, I'm not feeling very well. I think if you don't hear from me the rest of the day, then I'll talk to you tomorrow. And I'm like, he's going to start drinking. Yeah. And the last time we saw him, so that's not part of the whole lawyer plan, but, I just felt like, and the lawyer put in there, you are not to harass the parent, the mom, you're not supposed to come into this distance with so I felt like everything was in writing. So if he was, started drinking and he wanted to follow me or come by the house when he wasn't supposed to, then, then I could call the police. So it was just, and he came up with a really, really good detailed parenting plan, which I don't follow, because if he drinks, he stays away, and if he's sober, the kids get to see him and he's safe. So, I
want to ask you about the sober link, because that was not available back when I was going through this. That's a recent technology. So he has to blow into it every day, and you get the result. Does he do that voluntarily, or is that court ordered?
Well, it's voluntary because I told the lawyer this is what I want to do. So the lawyer, when
So it was
he
your
drafted up the plan,
suggestion.
it was my suggestion.
Got it.
Yeah. So,
Smart.
but it can be court ordered. Like if my husband had gone to court and said, I don't want to have to do this, I would have to present all this evidence and all this
Right.
rehab attempts and stuff, and then maybe the judge would have ordered him to do that. But he agreed to it. My lawyer sent over this proposal, and he agreed to it.
Well,
yeah,
that is wonderful.
Well,
yeah,
because he was such a mess for the year that I was gone. He knew he didn't have anything to fight.
Yeah.
So
I think that's really interesting because my ex-husband had to, because so I'm assuming yours doesn't have a drug issue because that's
a drug
sobriety.
Issue?
Yeah, like he's not addicted to drugs, is he?
No. I mean, he has a Xanax problem, I think.
Okay.
But it's mostly
you don't know, because I'm just
alcohol.
wondering. It's mostly alcohol. Because, like, for me, when I was doing the court-ordered visitation, he had to actually go to a Quest center and get his urine and blood test in order to see and then fax the results back to me that said that because he was struggling with drugs too. So the breathalyzer is a really great idea. Even if they don't volunteer, it's something great. I think a lot of women are going to find that super helpful to go to their lawyers and say, hey, I want this to happen. That's wonderful. Okay.
Yeah. And if he's drinking, he just doesn't blow into the breathalyzer, and I'll get a report with no report. I'll get the email, but he wouldn't have blown in the breathalyzer, so it just doesn't show up. The report doesn't show up because he didn't do it.
He didn't do it. And do you
agree
if he didn't do it, that he's been drinking?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. That would.
There have been 2 times that he did not do it, and I knew that he wasn't drinking.
How did you know? Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean,
we all know. We know the first word the way they answer and say hello on the phone.
Yeah.
We know.
Yeah.
We're like, you're just your gut. It's like something in your gut just goes off. Like, it's just an alarm, an internal alarm that you develop. And does this happen to you where I am out and about and I'll see somebody who's drunk or on drugs that I don't even know. And I'm like, they're high. Or has that happened to you yet?
No. But I tell you, like, if I'm ever, like, going to the liquor store to buy wine or something and I see someone with, like, going in there at like, noon buying airplane shots, I'm like, oh, boy, I know what you're going to, like, I want to get far away from you. You're buying airplane shots at noon.
You know what? I think that's so funny. It's so true. And I always see them and I'm like, oh God, I'm praying for your wife or I'm praying for your girlfriend because it's tragic. And then I thank God that I laughed. Like I thank God. Do you do that? Is there not a day that goes by
all
the time?
Oh, all the time.
I mean, I think that's how you can find enjoy in that moment, what you were talking about earlier about when your daughter's going to the bathroom and the dog is like going bananas. I think that's how you find joy in that moment. It's because you can compare it and go, well, this is nothing. This is a dog and a little girl and life is good. Compared to where I came from, I am okay.
Yes. And there was a time when I was living in my dad's house, and I was still, kind of depressed. I'm like, I'm living at dad's house. But the kids were playing hide and seek. My little one is so young, so it wasn't really hide and seek. And they were having so much fun. You could hear her in the next room. Anyway. And I was just like, I'm like, I just wasn't, I was like, why is this not, I should be like enjoying playing hide and seek with my kids. But then I was like, but they wouldn't be able to act like this if I had still been living with him. they wouldn't be having fun and running around the house and playing hide and seek and so I had to find joy in that. I felt like kind of depressed. I was alone playing, I didn't have any friends, didn't know anyone. I just wanted I wanted friends and adult, and I just felt so depressed that all I had were my two little kids, and I don't want to play hide and seek. I want to have an adult conversation with someone who's not my dad. So I was like, but look at how far we've come. They wouldn't be able to be this free and have any fun had we still been living in that house with him. It was all his attention, it would be all centered around him. And if the kids were too loud, he'd be yelling at them. And so, I found joy in like that moment when I was feeling so lonely for like adult conversation and adult company in my dad's house while they were playing hide and seek. I found joy. Thank God I'm not living with him anymore. It's like, so there is
totally.
That. So yeah.
Yeah. I think also because I feel like we have such similar stories. I moved away to another state, and I didn't live with my parents, but I lived right down the street from my mom. And so I lived in a house by myself, but I had no friends. I had 3 kids.
Yeah.
I was it for them. Like there was nobody else. Like it was all me. They needed me all the time. I felt worn out. And looking back on that year, I realized I really had, like, I was very depressed. I was very sad. I was mourning. I had post-traumatic stress. Like, it takes us, like, a year to recover from what we just went through. Like, so I think I felt like, I left. Life should be just, like, amazing. And even though it was peaceful and calm and I knew I made the right decisions and I felt so good for leaving, we had to, like, really recover from that post-traumatic stress.
Exactly. And, and I found myself when they'd be taking, screaming or crying or trying to give them a bath, I'd be I would be yelling at them. And I had to remind myself, like, this is a different time now. You don't have to yell at them because they're splashing. I'm still behaving like I'm still in that environment. Yeah. It's okay. They're just, running around the house and they're getting water everywhere, but you don't have to scream and yell. And I found myself for like the first 6 months still reacting as I was still living there and dealing with all that. So there's a lot of recovery after that. And I have a really good therapist that, has helped me with some post-traumatic stress stuff. And, and I think I still obviously yell at my kids sometimes and get frustrated but it's just not the same. It's not the same. I'm able to.
And by the way,
not
don't
react.
you have? And we have girlfriends who are married to wonderful guys who still manage, to get upset with their kids. I don't think that has to do. I think that's just human, and I think that's where grace comes in. Is I think all moms or most moms that I know struggle with that, where the kids are driving you nuts and that's your reaction. I remember when I was married to my first husband, he needed everything in order. He needed everything in, like the house needed to be perfect. So like the screen that is over the fireplace, like it had to be perfectly lined up. And like the books on the coffee table needed to be like in complete, like a uniform pile. And I remember every time, like an hour before he got home, I would run around the house, like, with 3 young kids. It was a disaster. So I would run around the house and try to, like, pick up everything. And I remember when I lived by myself after the year, after my divorce, I still ran my house like that, where he wasn't around, he wasn't going to walk in the room, but I felt guilty if something was out of place. And
interesting.
And like if there was like a cup on the counter that was left there overnight, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm such a bad person. I'm such a slob. All of those negative things kept coming to my mind. And over time, now I'm like, whatever. Dog hair, who cares? Survival with these kids.
I know.
So you do become unprogrammed. You do become unbrainwashed. But the addiction does brainwash you for a little while.
It does. It does. Yeah. Yeah, it does.
So where do you see yourself in 3 years, 5 years from now? Now that you're divorced, you've got your little kiddos, and you're on your road to recovery. Where do you see yourself? What's your vision?
I would like to help other women who are struggling. I don't know how or what. I go to Al-Anon, and I enjoy Al-Anon. I feel like it's like a miracle what has made my life. It is filled with so much more joy. I mean, it's not everyday joy yet, but so much more joy than when the entire marriage. I've experienced more joy living in Nashville than the entire time I was married. So
I love that for you.
So it's it's
awesome.
It's just getting better. It's just getting better. I want joy all day long, every day. but that's time to come. Just keep working towards it. Helping other people. That'll give me joy.
Totally.
I would like to meet a nice, healthy man too. That would give me more joy. So that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, those are good things to think of and good things to work for, and meeting a healthy man. But you know how you took on addiction and you said, I did the work? Well, finding a man, most of the time for women our age that have kids, it's the same amount of work. You got to work. You got to put yourself in places where you are willing to find other men. If you just stick to the same grocery store and soccer practice and church, and he's not going to show up at your doorstep. That's a whole other conversation that you and I can have at another time. But honey, I had to work to find the guy. I took it on as a job. And I'm so grateful I did. I'm so grateful I did, because he's the best guy in the world. But buckle your seatbelt and get prepared to stretch yourself, because
oh boy,
I haven't heard any stories where the guy just wolfs it,
Oh no, yeah.
So
do a course on that then.
I do. I do. Okay, well listen, I know you and I are both introverted, so we're gonna get off this phone call and need 3 hours of silence where we can fill our cups.
I know.
So I will let you get to it before the dog needs you or something else needs you. Thank you so much. I have really enjoyed this.
If you're ready to learn how to take on your own healing, you can join our Love Over Addiction program by going to loveoveraddiction.com/LOA. And if you haven't already, be sure and subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen and leave us a rating and review on iTunes. This podcast is created for your support, encouragement, and entertainment with Michelle's personal thoughts and beliefs. From one woman to another, bonded together by the fact we love someone suffering from addiction. This is not intended as a substitute for therapy or advice from a professional.